While you were at Wealthfront, I think you ran a big direct response TV commercial campaign. I'd love to spend some time talking about it because it was really interesting as I was reading a little bit about it. And so I'd love to start with the beginning. Like, why did you decide to run a big TV commercial campaign? And like, what was the strategy and sort of your thinking going into it?
Yeah, well, we decided to run TV ads partly because it was time. It was like we perceived it to be time within our, growth trajectory to really try to break out into the mainstream. So one thing that we were doing really well is appealing to people who had an easier time picking up the idea that software does things better than humans can, and you should automate your investing. And those people happen to primarily be, in Silicon Valley and then in New York, of course. And usually they were engineers, software people, tech people, product people. They were just like software adjacent, and so it was not unusual to them to think this way. And it was not unusual to them to seek out software solutions to, the everyday kind of questions that they were asking themselves about their own investing in their own finances and their own money, right? It's early fintech. It's not, this was, Robinhood was maybe just on the being born side. And certainly not, this was pre like AMC theaters, crazy. Everybody's using Robinhood to invest in meme stocks like that. None of that was happening, right? This is like, can you trust a computer to do any of this? Like we just barely had passed over the like peak online banking. Can I get an online bank? Um, so we needed to go mainstream beyond the people who were already comfortable with it. We wanted to pick up regular consumers. And like, what do regular consumers do? At the time, they were just beginning to cord cut. Sure, but plenty of them were still watching TV with commercials, you know? And so we picked up, it wasn't enough for us to do one commercial because one commercial, we thought it was just too risky. You can't just, you don't know what a mainstream consumer is going to respond to. And you can commit to a brand, but you can commit to a brand idea and like one campaign, but it's expensive to do that, and it's expensive to go all in. So what we wanted to do was actually we created a lot of different ideas and we tested a lot of different creative concepts. So we bought the same amount of time on the air as we would have for one commercial, but we created like 35 commercials instead and just slotted them in over the same period of time, which was basically over 1 year. We did it in two halves. We created first like 15 to 20 commercials, and then we were like, let's do it again. Let's do another 15. The reason we did that is because we really wanted to see what people reacted to, what got them going, what got them clicking, what they wrote in about. And frankly, it surprised us. So everyone kind of had this internal, not we didn't actually do bets, but it was kind of as though it was a pool where, I certainly thought that you don't need that guy commercials would go pretty well, and it wasn't that. It was the ones that were a little bit more fear, uncertainty, doubt oriented, where people were moved into action by thinking about their futures and their retirement and running out of money and having to flip burgers in retirement. That was an actual storyline to a commercial that we released that people responded pretty actively to. And it's never the ones that you think it's going to be. So, the idea that you would go all in on one script and one storyline, now that I've experienced doing the opposite of that, is like a little bit shocking that anybody does that.
And how did you, I mean, it must have been just a ton of work to, right, create like 35 different commercial spots. Were they like, did you just test the messaging in each commercial, or are there unique actors and setups and scenes? Like, how drastic was the test? Yeah.
Yes, good question. We had to do it in as scrappy a way as possible. So one way we did that was I worked really closely. We worked really closely with this one production company in LA that I had sourced, and they were incredible in that they were really willing to be um, catering of their work style to this like scrappy approach. So what we did was we booked one location across 4 days. Over those 4 days, we would do one scene, like basically one setup per day. which meant that like we kind of started our script making within certain constraints that would enable us to book a set like that. So, for example, on day one, we would record a a set that was like inside of a house, inside of a kitchen, and in the kitchen, we had two different scripts, two different scenes, two different setups, but with the same actors. So so basically now you have two different commercials recorded in a day within on one set. On the next day, you could record um, in the backyard because you would be set up in the backyard and you had a whole different script and you had the same actors. They were wearing different clothes, but like they had a different scenario that they were running through, and now they're doing a thing in the backyard. You're still on the same set, so like you've extended your stay one day. And then the next setup that you record like is on the couch in the living room. It's a whole different scenario that they're running through, like why they need to do automated investing. But now they're sitting on the couch and there's two dudes talking to each other. These were our hipster series, which actually did do pretty well. And then in the next in the afternoon, they're doing the yoga scene, which is like in a different room in the house. They're both doing yoga and they're talking about Wealthfront. It was ridiculous and it was fun and it was funny, but like you can see how basically that kind of all aligns into this economies of scale where you envision the scenarios within the constraints of the cost of the set and the production. But once you get that out of the way, like those set costs, then you're able to be really creative in your like storytelling within those constraints. Oh, we have a house, great. We have the backyard, we have a living room, we have a couch, we have a kitchen, we have a this, we have a fireplace, we have a that. And like, what stories do you tell within those constraints? You could be a little bit more scrappy than you might imagine.
Yeah, I filmed one commercial in my life for Lattice, and yeah, we didn't have a huge budget, but it was really interesting. Yeah, how the constraints just informed the creativity. Because once it was like, okay, here was my budget, that
Yes,
then the agency and the director we were working with was like, okay, well, here's what we can do. It could only be a
yeah,
1 day shoot at
yep,
one location, and then the script and the story all sort of forms around that constraint. And it honestly, like at first you're like, oh, that's annoying. I want this and I want that. But then it
yeah,
actually sort of forces the idea and makes it,
totally,
better along the way. But it's really fun
totally.
to do.
It's totally fun. And I think that honestly, if I had to boil down my most saleable marketing skill that I learned across that year of making commercials, making short films, if you will, like if you'll grant them that artistic license, is if you understand the constraints of production, you can do incredible storytelling. And if you have that opportunity once, twice, three times, you can take that skill with you wherever you go to become a marketer thereafter. You can tell story, you understand what goes in here, and suddenly like the people that you hire, the production crews, the contractors, the freelancers, they're like, oh my God, are you speaking my language? Because it's so frequently you're not speaking the same language. You as a creative person, as a marketer who hasn't done any production, you have visions, right? But they're based on things that you've seen on the other side of the screen. You've never seen how it gets made, how the sausage gets made. Once you see how the sausage gets made and you start speaking in and you start like setting up your campaigns and speaking the language of the sausage makers, oh my gosh, you can achieve so much more um economic like output. You can achieve better relationships with your vendors, you can work more efficiently. Like it's incredible. So learn the language of the sausage maker. That's my takeaway there.